so that like we will be full-fledgedly complete all the required prerequisites or pre-components of our project organization. Okay, so let us understand these exception handlings and all, and let us see. And then we will go for the invoking of all these workflows and methods and all. So, which one should we discuss first, like debugging or exception handling?
Exception handling, then debugging, right?
Why? Why not debugging and exception handling? Okay.
We can
Yeah.
handle the exception and we can debug it.
Hmm.
First, we can handle the exception, then we can debug it, right?
Correct, yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So it's not about like handling the exception and debugging it. Debugging is to identify where the error is occurring. So both are interrelated. In case if we fail to handle any error and somewhere you are getting some error, right? That we can identify by doing the debugging. And what is actually debugging? I want to go from debugging to exception handling. I'll tell you the reason also. Okay. And what is debugging? See, exception handling is to handle your error. To handle your errors, you should be aware, right? What is your error? Where are you getting that error? Why you are getting that error, right? Agree?
Correct path, correct, yeah.
So to know where you are getting the error, what is your error, then you need to do the debugging. And what exactly the debugging? Like this is the purpose of the debugging. So just keep the purpose of the debugging aside and what exactly the debugging. See, we have a running of the script. And debug the script. Both will come under execution. Script. Okay. Both are execution of the scripts. So what actually the running will do is, so we can say run mode and debug mode. So what run mode will do is it will execute it will execute your script. See, this is irrespective of the programming language, irrespective of the UiPath. These run mode and debug modes are like irrespective of a technology or a programming language or a tool. It will execute your script. Any error occurred, then execution will be stopped and no further execution can happen. Okay. So which means like it will execute your script, the run mode. And in case if you are getting any error, right, then the next executions will not happen. Whatever the script you have after this error, there will not be any execution happen. Will that happen in debug mode? It will execute your script. Okay. And we have an option, pause the execution at a particular step. execution at particular step and execute one line after the other manually. So we can execute next line and it will wait for a while, and again we can execute next line and it will wait for a while. And when you talk about UiPath, at particular activity we can pause our execution, and after that we can continue next activity. Again it will pause, again we can continue with the next activity. So in these ways we can do this debug mode will work. And let us suppose, consider the above scenario. If any error occurred, then execution will not be stopped. It will be paused. And you can ignore the error. When it is paused, right? We can ignore the error. And we can change the existing variable or argument values. Update variable or arguments values. And we can retry the execution at that particular activity. So we will have an options to check what actually we are getting and why it is getting errored out, and how we can try in a different ways, or we can ignore that line, that activity execution, and we can continue with the next activities and can continue the execution for next set of activities. So are you guys clear about the run mode and debug mode? Of course, we will go into the studio, guys, but are you clear about these two? What is a run mode and debug mode? Guys, am I audible?
Yes, Path. Yes.
Okay. And see, these are about the run mode and debug mode. And in debug, what are the other options we will be having? Okay. Specifically to UI, irrespective of UI. But first, let us understand like common options we generally have. Breakpoint. This is the most important or common feature in debug mode. What is a breakpoint? Hmm? What is a breakpoint?
Let's say if you want to run the flow, right,
Hmm.
for any particular step, right? So I think
Hmm.
then there basically we can put our breakpoint, and then once we start our bot, right, then bot basically is run in the entire workflow and stop in the breakpoint.
So just replace your run to a debug. It will stop only in the debug mode.
Correct.
So execution will be paused at breakpoint when we run in the debug mode. Okay, clear, guys? And we have a lot of options. and when it comes to debug mode, right? We have step into, step out, step over. These we will see in the studio. Because these we can showcase only in the studio, not in like in the theoretical way. So these are the different options we have in a debug mode. And we have a locals panel, immediate panel, where we can see our variable values, or we can update the variable values and all. So these are the two different panels will be popped up when we are running in a debug mode. Okay. So all these we will look in the studio when we are working on in the studio. Okay. Okay. So let us go to the exception handling. So what is actually an exception handling?
To handle the error basically in our workflow, right? For that basically purpose, we
Why do you need to handle the error? What is the purpose of handling the error?
so basically to skip that particular stage and the basically flow basically continuously basically move, right? So
Mhm.
that's why basically we are putting exception handling. This is I
Mhm.
think that is the purpose of
Yeah.
the exception handling.
Yeah. While in execution, if any error occurred, in order to avoid termination of the execution, you can say stopping of the execution also, and continue with next set of actions, need to do exception handling. Is this correct?
Yes, Path.
I don't think so. This is not the right, I guess. This is one of the optional thing, but not, I don't think so.
Okay.
Why we will do is to give a meaningful information about the known errors and inform the users about the error, and also traceability of the error. These are the reasons why we do the exception handling. See, you are getting an error, but you're not sure, right? Like at what place you are getting an error, what type of error you are getting, and all these things, right? If you handle the exceptions at a unit level, then we will get a clear picture and we can write a proper log messages there, and what kind of error and what is the error message and at what place it happened and all these details, right? That is more required, right? See, in all of your code will get an error, but end of the story, what you want to do? You want to understand why you got an error, right? For that, you need to do the traceability, right? Are you guys following? Am I clear or like getting confused?
Yeah, Path. True. Correct.
So continuing with the next set of actions is optional. Of course, when you do an exception handling, next set of activities will execute. But here, what we will do is whatever we um, have done till now, right? Based on that and the type of exception and the exception, based on those, we will may need to perform some different steps. That also we can do only with the help of exception handling. First, let us understand what are the different types of exceptions. See, exceptions is nothing but errors. Okay, errors we will be having runtime, validation. We will be having a couple of errors, and the valid runtime errors, like generally we call it as exceptions, which will happen during our execution time. Okay, runtime we will be having a lot of, again, like we will be having subdivisions and all, but one of them is exceptions, and that's where we will be more interested. See, validation errors is something that, like, when you drag and drop an activity and you didn't provide the mandatory values, you will be getting some validation mark right on top of an activity. That are validation errors. So exceptions, we are more focused on exceptions, and higher level, what are the different types of exceptions we have? Business exception, system exception. So these are the high level exceptions to categorizations where we will be having in our RPA processes. These are the high level. Are we not having any other type of exceptions? We have a lot, but these are the major categorization we can say, and all of them will fall under these. These are related to the rules we may need to validate as part of our process. In case if the input is not correct, input data validations or data validations, you can say. In such a scenario, that those exceptions we call it as business exception. Okay. Other than business exceptions, will fall under system exception. Okay. And let us discuss few more types what we have as part of our application exception, selector not found exception, null reference exception, we have more man object reference or something will be there. Something. We will be having a lot of exceptions and number of exceptions you can find. All these will fall under system exceptions because it's not about related to the business rules or whatever the predefined rules we have in process. So all these will fall under the system exceptions. So now let us come. What activities do we have? This will be an important interview question, man. Do we have for exception handling? What activities do we have?
Try catch,
Throw and throw.
Hmm?
try catch.
Try catch.
Throw.
Throw and rethrow.
Throw and rethrow.
Terminate.
What else?
Terminate.
Terminate. Still, terminate is something that it's still a conflicting, whether it is part of exception handling or not. But we'll keep it, okay? No worries. So let us understand each activity now. What is a
But,
try catch?
but generally, basically, RP developer deal with the system exception, right? So I think system exception is basically main concern for the RP developer, and the business exception I think will be taken by the business team, right?
Sorry, your voice is not clear, Akash. I'm getting some
Am I
echo.
audible? Am I audible?
Yeah.
So what basically I'm asking to you. So system exception is basically concern for the RP developer, right? But in case of business exception, will be taken care by the business team, right?
No, see, business exceptions, you can say these are the real expected exceptions.
Huh.
Okay, now, okay, and these are not unexpected,
Okay.
and these are the real exceptions. These are acceptable exceptions. System exceptions are the real exceptions, which we consider that failure happened, and business exception is an exception which we consider that the process is successful, not a failure,
Okay.
because these are the expected exceptions. Okay. Of course, for these we will be working on it, and for business exceptions, because the input whatever you given to the robot itself is wrong, so the business needs to take care of it.
Correct.
Agree with your point, yeah. So try catch. So what actually this activity will do? So what this activity will do? Try something to execute. Catch if any exception occurred. Execute irrespective. Irrespective. Try or not. So let us understand when which block will be executed and what we will be having in each block. Right? Try block is like where your actual code will be developed. In case if there is an exception, then it will go to the catch block. Okay. And let us assume that there is no exception occurred. Then the catch block will not be executed. Okay. And finally block will be executed after the try block. And let us assume there is an exception occurred in the try block. Then the catch block will be executed. And then finally block will be executed. Let us take the scenario. There is an exception occurred in the try block, and there is an exception occurred in the catch block also. Then the finally block will not be executed. The reason is, in case if there is an exception occurred, unless and until we have a catch block defined for that particular, which means like you should be need a try block. And you can have like in the side of the catch, right? You can have one more try catch. So it's up to us. But in case if any exception occurred in the catch block and the finally block will not be executed. Even next set of activities will not execute. Okay, clear? Let us write those. No exception. Catch, no execution. Finally executed. Okay, this is one scenario. Okay, try exception, catch executed with no exception. Finally execute. Try exception, catch executed with exception. No execution. So only if you have any exception in the catch block, in that scenario only the finally block will not be executed. In the rest, all the scenarios, the finally block will be executed. Okay, clear? Is it clear,
Yeah,
guys?
correct part. Yeah, correct.
So let us think in this way. How many catch blocks can we define? A try catch can have. How many catch blocks we can have? Minimum of one catch block we should have, and upper number we don't have any limitation. You can have any number of catch blocks. And let us suppose you defined a business exception catch block. Okay, defined. Okay, and you got system exception in try block. Will it go to the catch block? Execution will not go to catch block. Let us suppose we have a system exception catch block defined. Got a business exception. So what will happen? Will the catch block be executed? Hmm? Tell me, guys. Will the execution happen? Yes. Reason is system exception catch block will accept any type of exceptions. system exception catch block will accept any exception. Okay. And let us suppose you defined system exception catch block, business exception catch block, application exception catch block, null reference, selected not. And we got an exception. To which catch block it will go? Most matched exception. Which means, like, let us suppose you got a null reference exception, then it will go to this catch block. And if you get anything application related exceptions, it will come here. If it is something related to the selectors, it will go to here. If it is a business, it will go here. So it will go with the most specific match, I can say. So this is how the bot will exceptions will be handled by catch blocks with different types of exception types. Clear, guys?
Yes, Patia.
There will be questions on top of this. They will try to ask you all these type of these things. When the finally will execute and how many catch blocks you can have, and then let us suppose you have more catch blocks, then how the execution will happen to which catch block. So all these things they will. Okay. Now we are cool with the we're good with the try catch block, right? Now let us go to through. What is this? What this activity is going to do? What this activity is going to do? From where this is coming? From where the business exception is coming? Because the system exception in the sense like any exception will be considered as system exception. And when we are saying the broader way, there will be two types. One is system related and the other is the data related business exception, right? And then how we are going to get this? This we need to throw this exception based on business rules. And we will use throw activity to throw the exception. Got it? And the syntax will be new business rule exception. Not only business rule exception, we can throw any, but for the business rule exception, we generally throw a lot. This will be the double quote. In case if you want to throw an application exception, you just write this as application exception. In case if you want to write null reference exception, you just need to write null reference exception. So you just need to change this exception type name, and all the other things will be common, and we will be using this inside of our throw. Okay. This is an example of business rule, but you can have other types also in the similar. Of course, we are going to throw all these exceptions and see anyhow. And rethrow. What is rethrow? And what is the difference between throw and a rethrow? That will be a question. The name itself suggests, right? Rethrow means throwing of the catched exception. Whatever we catch the exception in a catch block, whatever we catch the exception in a catch block, that exception will be rethrowed, which means like you doesn't want to execute finally block or a next set of activities. So for that reason, you are throwing it again. Where generally we will be using it is, let us suppose you are working with an application. Let us Rethrow catched exception, and it does not have any input and can be used only inside of the catch block. Whereas the throw can be used everywhere. You can use in try block, you can use in finally block, you can use in catch block. But rethrow, you cannot use anywhere other than the catch block. Let us take the scenario. Try running an application, performing actions. Step 1 to 10. Okay. Exception occurred at step 5. And before I go to the finally, I don't want to execute the finally, but based on one particular exception type, I want to close this application and I don't want to execute rest of the process. Right? Then in the catch block, close the applications, use rethrow.
Path here have what not path.
Mm-hmm.
Through also like when it come to like that activity, the moment it achieving that condition, it stop the execution, right? It will come out of it and it will end of the activity, right? It's not going to run other activity like rethrow.
It will not execute the next activities, but in case if you have a try catch inside a try catch, if you take your RJ framework, right, the complete process.yaml is inside your try catch, like whatever it might be. You can have try catch inside a try catch, right? In
Okay.
case if you are having this in another try block, then it will go to that particular catch block.
Yeah.
You can say here, rethrow not allow finally block to be executed and next set of activities to, and will go to next level catch block. If it was not inside of your catch block, right, then it will terminate the workflow. The workflow will be stopped. Is your question answered or?
Yeah.
But just explain one more time about the throw and rethrow. Just explain one more time throw and rethrow.
Sure. Throw is to throw a specific exception based on then for a noun exceptions, we can say. See, not only the business rule, for all business rule exceptions, we will be throwing with the help of throw activity only. There will not be any business rule exception other than we used a throw activity. But we can throw other type of activity exceptions as well. So based on some, yeah.
So it means basically throw only triggered when we have a business exception, right? We can only use throw.
Sorry.
So throw only triggered when we have a business exception, right?
No, not only business exception. See, let us suppose if we are going to a login page, right? And the password expired can happen, right? Invalid credentials may come. We know these exceptions. So when we have a noun exceptions, we will be using throw activity to throw the exceptions. Okay.
Got it. Yes.
And here for a business rule exception, it is a must. We need to use a throw activity. And in case if it is a login failure, right? Instead of business rule exception, I'll say that application exception. Okay. So for that, we will be using throw activity. And this can be used in try block, catch block, final block, everywhere. Even outside of try catch also. But rethrow is that like we can use only in the catch block and whatever the exception it catched. So let us suppose we are throwing a business rule exception in a try block. Okay.
Mm.
And in case if you are using rethrow in the catch block, right, it will rethrow the same business rule exception.
Okay.
Okay. So the executions will be like this. And in case if you use the rethrow, right, then it will go to the next level catch block. When I say next level catch block, you can have a try catch inside a try catch, right?
Mm.
So in that way it will go. And the terminate workflow is just to terminate your workflow. Terminates execution. It is not recommended to use. When we use the terminate workflow, right, the job statuses will go in a failure mode. Like that we will see later stage. Yeah, terminate is just to terminate your execution. And so clear? Are we clear about all these exceptions? We will see these tomorrow in the studio in action. All clear, guys? Any more questions?
Yeah. So it's still basically you stack your point, like first we need to perform the debug and then exception handling, because see, as a RP developer, like I think we have to